Chapter 4. Stepping into Spotlight. The weeks that followed settled into a strange, muted rhythm. On the surface, everything between Al and me looked normal again. He apologized. Quietly at first, then with the familiar rehearsed softness that always came after his anger burned itself out. "I overreacted," he said one night, sitting at the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees. "I shouldn't have accused you. I trust you, Amy. I really do." I nodded, because that was what I always did. I nodded, accepted the apology, let the moment pass. But something in me had shifted. I could feel it, like a door that had closed without making a sound. I was colder, even when I tried not to be. I still cooked dinner, still asked about his day, still listened when he talked about a game or a player, whose name slid off my mind the moment he said it. But I no longer leaned in. I no longer tried to bridge the distance between us on my own. Al noticed, of course. "You've been quiet lately," he said one evening, watching me from across the table. Did I do something wrong again? The question carried both guilt and accusation, as if my silence itself were a crime. "No," I replied too quickly. "I'm just tired." He accepted that answer the way he always did, relieved, uncurious. And that, more than anything, confirmed what I already knew. John, on the other hand, noticed everything. Our coffees became an unspoken ritual. Not scheduled, not promised. Just a quiet understanding that every now and then, when the day felt too heavy or the office too loud, one of us would ask, "Coffee?" he'd say, holding up his mug like a peace offering. Sometimes it turned into ice cream if the afternoon stretched too long, or if the air outside felt like it demanded something sweet. We'd sit on a bench, paper cups sweating in our hands, talking about work, about nothing, about everything. One afternoon, after a long morning of meetings, I found myself telling him about the project. "I proposed an automation framework for security incident detection," I said, staring down at my coffee as if it might judge me. "Using pattern recognition and rule-based triggers. It's meant to reduce response time, especially for low-level incidents that don't need human intervention right away." John's eyes lit up, not theatrically, but with genuine interest. "That's ambitious," he said. "Did they approve it?" "They did," I replied, surprised at the pride creeping into my voice. "My manager liked the idea. We've been working on it for months now." "And you?" he asked. "What part are you handling?" "Most of the documentation," I admitted, "and a good chunk of the logic design. My manager wants to present it to senior leadership and the other teams. I'm preparing the material for that." John smiled, slow and thoughtful. "You realize that's a big deal, right?" I shrugged. "It's just work." "No," he said gently. "It's your work." The words stayed with me longer than I expected. At home, Al listened to my updates about work with polite disinterest. "That sounds good," he said once, glancing at his phone. "Is it almost done?" "Almost," I replied. He nodded. "Already elsewhere." With John, the conversation stretched. He asked questions, not to impress me, not to steer the discussion back to himself, but because he genuinely wanted to understand. "What inspired the idea?" he asked one evening, spoon tapping against his empty ice cream cup. I hesitated. Honestly, being tired of reacting instead of preventing things. I wanted something smarter, something calmer. He studied me for a moment. "That sounds like you." I laughed softly. "You don't even know me that well." "Maybe not," he said, "but I'm paying attention." That was the difference. With Al, I was always explaining myself, justifying my silences, smoothing over his insecurities, until mine had no room to exist. With John, I didn't feel lonely, even when we weren't talking. When we parted ways after those afternoons, there was no lingering tension, no unspoken expectation. Just warmth, a sense of being seen without being claimed. And though Al was back to normal, apologies given, routines restored, I knew deep down that something irreversible had begun. Not an affair, not a betrayal, just the quiet realization that I had been pouring myself into a relationship that no longer held me, and that somewhere between coffee cups, code documentation, and conversations about books I loved, I was starting to find myself again. The call came just after lunch, when the office had settled into that soft, humming lull. Keyboards clicking, chairs shifting, the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. "Amy," my manager said from his doorway, his voice tight in a way that immediately set my nerves on edge. "Do you have a minute?" I followed him into the small meeting room, my mind already racing through possibilities. Deadlines. Bugs. Something breaking at the worst possible moment. He didn't sit down. "I won't make it to the senior management meeting," he said. "Something urgent came up. I need you to handle the presentation." The words didn't register at first. I laughed weakly, certain I'd misheard. "You mean help answer questions?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I mean lead it." You know the project better than anyone. The slides are ready. The documentation is solid. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. The phrase echoed in my head long after he left the room. By the time I got back to my desk, my hands were trembling. My heart beat too fast, too loud, as if everyone around me could hear it. Senior management, directors, people whose opinions could shape careers with a single raised eyebrow. I stared at my screen, reading the same sentence over and over without absorbing it. You're not ready. You're going to freeze. You should say no. But another voice, quieter, stubborn, pushed back. This is your work. I stood up when the calendar reminder flashed. Legs unsteady, spine stiff with determination, and fear tangled together. The conference room was already half full. I saw John first. He gave me a small, reassuring nod from his seat. No words, just presence. It steadied me more than he probably knew. And then I felt it, that familiar, unsettling awareness. Mike Taylor sat near the far end of the table, one arm resting casually along the chair, posture relaxed in that effortless way of his. His expression was unreadable, cool, distant, but his eyes were on me, not glancing, not wandering, watching. I took a breath and began. At first, my voice sounded foreign to my own ears, too controlled, too careful. But as I moved through the slides, something shifted. The data made sense. The architecture flowed the way it always had in my mind. I explained detection thresholds, automation triggers, escalation logic. This was my language. Still, I could feel Mike's gaze like a weight on my skin. Every time I paused, every time I advanced a slide, I was aware of him, measuring, assessing, remembering. The room stayed quiet, attentive. When I finished, there was a brief moment of silence that stretched too long. Then John clapped. Once, twice. Others followed, measured applause at first, then genuine. Heads nodded. Someone murmured, "Impressive." I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. Mike didn't clap. He simply looked at me, eyes dark with thought, lips pressed into something that wasn't quite a smile. The meeting wrapped up, chairs scraping back as people stood and gathered their things. I was still packing my laptop when Mike approached. "Interesting idea," he said coolly. "But tell me, what's the real goal of implementing this?" I met his gaze, pulse quickening. "To improve response efficiency," I began carefully. "Reduce risk." "And you?" he interrupted, tilting his head slightly. "Where do you see yourself in 5 years, having built something like this?" I understood immediately. This wasn't curiosity. It was a reminder. A challenge. He was still holding the rejection between us, polishing it like a blade. Before I could respond, John stepped in beside me. "Amy did a great job today," he said warmly, his voice cutting through the tension like sunlight through glass. "Really impressive work." Mike's eyes flicked to him, just for a second, before returning to me. "Yes," he said softly. "She did." Then he turned and walked out. I stood there, heart racing, emotions colliding. Pride, fear, defiance, something unnamed. John leaned closer and smiled. "See? You didn't just survive. You owned it." For the first time that day, I smiled back. And somewhere deep inside me, a quiet certainty began to take root. Whatever paths lay ahead, I was done letting others define my worth, or my future. Jack asked me to step into his office late that afternoon, just as the light outside the windows was beginning to soften and stretch across the carpet in pale gold lines. "Amy," he said, closing the door behind me. "Have a seat." My stomach tightened instantly. Compliments still made me nervous, especially after a day like that. I perched on the edge of the chair, hands folded in my lap, bracing myself. "I heard about the presentation," Jack began, smiling. "Actually, no. I saw the feedback. You did exceptionally well." I blinked. "Thank you," I said quietly, unsure where this was going. "I mean it," he continued. "You handled senior management with clarity and confidence. Not everyone can do that." My shoulders relaxed just a little. Then he leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. "Which is exactly why I want you to be part of the upcoming showcase." The word landed heavily between us. "The showcase?" I repeated. "But the project isn't ready. We still need testing, edge cases." "I know," Jack said calmly. "This wouldn't be a full demo, more of a conceptual walkthrough. Vision, architecture, impact." I shook my head instinctively. "I don't think I'm the right person for that. You should present. Or we could wait until the next cycle." Jack studied me for a moment, then said gently, "Mike Taylor asked for you specifically." The room felt smaller all of a sudden. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, certain I'd misheard. "He saw something in your presentation today," Jack said. "He thinks you're the right face for this." My pulse spiked. 1,000 thoughts collided in my mind. Mike's cold stare, his question about my future, the unspoken tension that still lingered between us. I don't think that's a good idea, I said carefully. I'm not, Amy, Jack interrupted, not unkindly. This is an opportunity. A big one. You don't get asked to present at the showcase unless people are paying attention. I knew that, and that was exactly what frightened me. I'll need time to prepare, I said finally, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. You'll have it, Jack replied. 2 weeks, and I'll support you.